Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of the press conference review. I am here back in the lab. I did try to record some of this at the AXA. Unfortunately those files were unusable. The wind and the rain absolutely battered this poor little microphone on my lapel, and it just wasn't usable, so we had to come back here and try again. But hey, you guys are used to my lab by now, so hopefully it shouldn't be too much of an issue. We will start, as we always do, with team news, with injury news. Of course, the main man who everyone wants to hear about is Hugo Ekitike. Slot said that so far since the Fulham game he has not trained, but there was a potential for him to train later this afternoon. If he did and come through unscathed, then obviously that will put him in contention to be in the squad for the game against Arsenal. I would still be surprised if you see him in the starting lineup. The interesting part of all of this is that there have been reports out there on the internet, which I'm sure all of you have seen by now, that the idea that Hugo Ekitike should be in this game is in conflict with some other people at the club. Some people have mentioned whether it be Richard Hughes, some people have mentioned whether it be the sports science department believe that Hugo Ekitike is still not fit enough to be in this game, and Arne Slot may be in the interest of trying to secure a win that secures his own position, may well take a risk that others aren't willing to take. Now, I don't have any personal information around that score, but it does add an extra layer of intrigue as to whether or not Ekitike will be in the squad. There was better news around Joe Gomez. He is officially back. He has been training as normal and will be in contention, whether it's from the start or on the bench. So we shall see exactly how that shakes up when it comes to team news. But for now, it's top takeaway time. Top takeaway number one: Liverpool are willing to take a risk on transfers. It is January. Of course, Arne Slot's going to be asked about the January transfer window. He was asked about Mark Gahey. He was asked about Harvey Elliott. He was asked about centre-back depth. He was asked about generally being happy with the squad. He wouldn't be the first manager to say that, yes, I am happy with the squad during the January transfer window. All managers tend to say that. I mean, for starters, they know that the players are listening. It's not uncommon for a manager to decide he wants to make them think that he believes they are as good as they possibly can be. What we normally see in these situations is that I'm very happy with the squad, followed by but we are in the market, and if we are looking for opportunities, and if an opportunity to improve the squad comes, then we will do that. We didn't get that this time. I think that was significant. What we did get was more of an idea of the philosophy of not just Arne Slot, but of the club. He mentioned the spending that happened in the summer. He mentioned the fact that Liverpool have traditionally often gone in with a shorter squad than they have done. He even referenced Jurgen Klopp when he had to play with midfielders at centre half, and he mentioned the fact that he was aligned with Richard Hughes, which again is interesting considering recent reports, but also the fact that he believed that in the mid-term and in the long term the squad is in a very good place if everyone is available, which, as we've seen right now, is a very big if. The problem is, this is where a lot of people within the fan base, a lot of people within the media, most observers, including myself, believe that that is the key difference between the success of Liverpool's philosophy and the potential success of this season. Is that it's all well and good saying that in this scenario, then we're fine, but we aren't in that scenario. We're in a scenario where injuries are hitting left, right and centre, and that may well be a big damage to Liverpool's ambitions this season. If Liverpool don't get into the Champions League, it won't necessarily just be a one-off issue. This could have significant ramifications for the next 2 to 3 years. So as good as the squad might be, they need to be able to keep it winning. So it's all well and good Liverpool saying we aren't going to look at transfers, and that looks like what they are going to be saying. It's a massive risk, but it's one that they appear willing to take. Top takeaway number two: this Arsenal game may be more important for the Champions League than the Premier League. This was another opportunity where Arne Slot kind of suggested that the league is gone. He said that Arsenal are 14 points up the road and they deserve to be 14 points up the road, and that this game is important because they still have ambitions in the Premier League. He didn't say ambitions for the Premier League. And then he went on to talk about the knockout competitions, the FA Cup, the Champions League, and how in order to win those big competitions, you need to play well against big teams. And so testing yourself against one of the best teams or the best team in the league at the moment in Arsenal is a good indicator of how they can do in those competitions. They're going to need to be able to see where they are in those competitions. And while that might be a valid point, the idea that that becomes more of the priority, and rather than looking at, we can take Arsenal and if we win this game it's only 11 points and there's still half of the season to go, and etc, etc, etc. These are the kind of things that a lot of Liverpool fans want to hear from the Liverpool manager. They don't want to hear a Liverpool manager admitting defeat, even if that is the logical situation. So he's going to be upsetting a lot of people by saying that. But he has to be realistic, I think, as well. He has to know that his team currently aren't in the kind of form to put together the kind of run to get them back into that Premier League title race. Maybe he feels like keeping that idea alive at this point is putting too much pressure on them. And maybe he just needs to say to them, or he feels like he needs to say to them, just keep winning, just keep performing, and we'll see where we are later on in the season. Either way, I don't think it's going to be something that keeps everybody happy, but then I think that's part of Arne Slot's life right now. Whatever he says, there's going to be someone who's unhappy about it. Top takeaway number 3, Slot believes he is an attacking manager. This might be the most contentious part of the whole presser, even more so than the transfer stuff. This was in response to a question from Adam Patel about how Liverpool have been perceived as being boring, something which he had already flagged up in his answer to my question. More on that in a little while. He doesn't see it that way. He takes pride in being a manager who likes to play attacking football, something that he referenced last season. We all remember the press conference where he told me that his dad was upset with the team because they weren't attacking enough, and he was responding to that by saying he thinks they are attacking, but you can look at things very differently when you kind of analyse it in comparison to the era before Arne Slot. If you think of the Jurgen Klopp era, one of the things Arne Slot has done since then has kind of eliminated the risk, or tried to reduce the risk. The way I would describe it is they've tried to prioritise waiting for the best chance to attack rather than the first chance to attack. There's been less big booming Hollywood balls, the kind of which Trent made his name from. But that does mean that generally players come slower, passing has been more lateral, and you get to a point where we're in the situation we've been in the last couple of games where it's really been a tough watch. What Liverpool have had no energy, no urgency, and at times in those games it really didn't look like they knew how they were going to go about scoring a goal. And again, the conversations around this team have been that this is all Arne Slot's fault. This is what he decided to do. He wanted to do that back to basics, as I called it previously, after those big defeats against PSV, City and Forest. He wanted to make them harder to beat. He's made them more cautious, more sit back, pass rather than gung-ho attack, what we saw from Jurgen Klopp. He's ruined Jurgen Klopp's legacy. That's not how Slot sees it at all, which is fascinating to me because, as I said previously, that flies in the face of a lot of what everyone else is saying. But it does also mean, well, if he's not intending it to be like this, then why is it still like this? Okay, now I trailed my question to Arne Slot. Well, it's time for you to hear exactly what he had to say right now. Hi Arne, you mentioned there before that most of Liverpool's best performances this season have become against a better team, Real Madrid, Inter, Arsenal, Aston Villa. Do you find that frustrating that they're unable to make that consistency against some of the other teams? And what do you put that down to? Is it style of play? Is it maybe an attitude issue?
It is annoying because usually you think it's harder to play against the best teams in the world or in the country than to play against teams that are not competing for a league title or not involved in the Champions League. But there's definitely a reason why it is, because I think in the last 9 games, I think people have liked our 2 games against Villa and Brighton more than all the other games we've played. And I can exactly tell you why that is, but if I do so, people will tell me, how can you make your opponents so much wiser? So, and we have to find a way of playing that same style of football against other styles of play as well, but we haven't found that answer enough yet. But yet is an important thing to add.
Do you still believe that you'll be able to get there this season?
Yeah. What do you mean we'll get there?
Oh, to be able to find that consistency against those other teams.
We should be definitely be able to find that consistency, and also play games that are more a joy to watch against teams that have a different approach against us than Brighton and Villa have. But therefore we need, of course, as much players available as we can, and keep working very hard to find openings and find the right ideas to hurt those teams as well. But against Fulham, I don't think many people thought it was a joy to watch, and I've said many times that I found our games against Paris Saint-Germain a joy to watch. So then compare maybe these 2 games with each other, and then ask yourself the question, why is one game a joy to watch and the other is harder to watch? And when people tell me, you always need extra pass, the first goal we scored against Fulham was only 1 pass. So these players do know that if we need 1 pass, or we can use 1 pass to score a goal, we try to. And the second goal we scored was 17 passes we needed before we could bring a cross in. And sometimes that's needed. If you win the ball back low on the pitch and the other team goes to the low block, it's harder to get through it in 1 pass, which we did in the first goal because we won the ball back high up the pitch.
Compared to last week, this was a much longer answer, a much more detailed answer, and I must admit I was very pleased to hear him go into such detail and fascinated by some of what he said. He said to me that he knew exactly why his team have played better against the better teams compared to some of the worst teams, but he didn't want to say so publicly, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it seems to be a change of tack. Now maybe he's taken on board some of the criticisms that he's had for being so open tactically. Maybe he does believe that what he says in his press conferences actually does have an influence on the opponents and what they do. Or maybe he just wants to try to minimize some of the criticism he's been receiving. This is another area that people have been beating him down, and maybe he just wants to try and minimize those. Maybe there's so many different areas he's taking criticism, he's trying to minimize this one, which is interesting because that, again, as I say, it's a change of tack. The other interesting part about this is that if he's so adamant that he knows exactly what the problem is, that doesn't seem to have helped him in terms of trying to fix it. Now, one of the things that he mentioned within this answer was about the difference between, as I said previously, the slow pass situation that people seem to believe is what he wants his Liverpool team to do. He referenced the Fulham game and that they were able to go direct in that first goal. It took only 1 pass to get to where they were. So he's saying, well, hey, we're not only just a pass you to death kind of team, but the flip side of that was the second goal he referenced. There was a 17 pass move, which seems to suggest that he believes that there is a place for that more patient play. It's not necessarily all of one or all of nothing. There needs to be a little bit of both, which is understandable, but again, does not match up with what we're seeing on the pitch. I would also add that the time for patience is probably not the 95th minute, which is, but here we are. Anyway, I think you look at the way Liverpool have started games, and I think that's been a real issue with a lot of people. Liverpool have been starting too slowly. They have allowed their opponents to feel comfortable, and sometimes that comfort is with Liverpool having the ball, which should never be a good thing. I'd never think it should be a good thing where the opponents want you to have the ball, because that says to me they don't believe that you can hurt them with it. And so far that seems to be the case. So Whether Arne Slot fully knows exactly what's going on, whether he's just telling us that, whether he's trying to keep his cards close to his chest, whether he's trying to evade criticism, all of these things are all well and good. He needs to be able to find a solution to it, because his time, I believe, is running out. I don't know anything about any of the rumours around civil war and all of those reports that have come out over the last 48 hours around his job being in direct danger. But I'll tell you one thing, if Liverpool lose this game against Arsenal, and then maybe go on and don't get a good result against Barnsley, or even if you take the FA Cup game out of the equation, Liverpool lose this game against Arsenal, potentially going 17 points clear of the leaders, 17 points away from the leaders. And some of the teams who are chasing them for that fourth Champions League spot, your Chelsea's, your Manchester Uniteds, both of whom have changed managers and may well start to see some benefits from it. No guarantee, but they may. If they win this weekend, or this midweek, should I say, and then they'll be right on Liverpool's tail, suddenly that pressure increases. And for all that I do still believe that Liverpool want to give Arne Slot as long as possible to turn this around, and I do still believe, as we sit here right now, the most likely scenario is that he sees out the season at least. The way that that changes is if Liverpool lose a grip on that Champions League place. So he is in no position to be messing around. If he knows the answers, you better start finding them, and quickly. So there you have it. That is today's press conference review. I will be at Goodison later this afternoon, so I'll be putting out a match report for that. I'm not going down to the Emirates, unfortunately, but hopefully that means that Liverpool will be able to put on a good performance, and I'll be able to happily watch it from the comfort of my own sofa. We'll see. There will be more from me over the course of the next few weeks, as I mentioned previously. This is Anfield article that I am working on will be out very soon. I'm going to be on the Anfield Wrap. I'm going to be on the Late Challenge, as always. I will be appearing on BBC Radio Merseyside in a couple of weeks as well. My regular slot there with Paul Saul. So you will hear plenty from me over the next few weeks. Hopefully, some of it is a bit more positive. We'll see you soon.